Visions of woe from the depths where shadows hide, strings that sigh with sorrow's glow. In the night the secrets wide.
Welcome back to the Ruins of Symbaroum podcast, where we explore the rich and complex world of Ruins of Symbaroum. I'm your host, the RPG Anarchist, and today we're turning our attention to the human civilization that calls the lands south of Davokar home, the Ambrians. Today's topic, the Ambrians, driven by ambition, shaped by history. In the previous episode, we talked about Davokar and its mysterious nature. Now, let's delve into the culture of the people that are mostly drawn to the forest, the Ambrians. So, there are people of Alberator. The Ambrians are descendants of those who fled the blighted land of Alberator. So, there was this gigantic war that took place, and we'll get into that great war later, but these are the folks that were driven from their land, and now these are the guys that I'm referring to as the new humans, like I mentioned in episode 1 and in the other stuff. They're the Ambrians, and they've endured quite a bit, and we'll get into why they endured what they had to endure. But in the meantime, these are the main folks that are stirring the pot now. These are the folks that, well, let's get into it. This history of displacement and hardship has made them a resilient, resourceful, and ambitious people. They're driven by a need to build a new home and secure their place in the world. They strive for progress and improvement in all aspects of their lives. So, their history is they've lost their homeland. And in an unbelievable fashion. We're talking mighty warrior culture, highly socialized, strong military, strong architecture, have a true identity of themselves and their culture, and they lost. And now they have to restart. And to them, there's a lot at stake here. Not only their own existence, but their pride. And it's just they can't believe it. So civilized and organized, the Ambrians are a highly structured society valuing order and discipline. This was forged in the fires of the Great War. In the Great War, they learned the importance of strong leadership and coordinated efforts. They have a complex bureaucracy and a well-organized military and trade system. They value nuanced knowledge and refined skills, but this can make them slow to adapt to new situations. So, the Great War, as they referred to it, I said they lost. They were able to win the day, but in doing so, they burnt their they burnt their home. I'll just leave it at that. It was no longer a place they could stay. They tried, but they couldn't. They had to get up and go. So can you imagine that? Can you imagine um, just an overwhelming force shows up out of nowhere, um, and you're fighting something you ain't never seen before, and it goes on, and you're an army that's never lost or come close to never losing, and you're put to the test, and you got to pull off a miracle, and you do it, and you win, and your reward is ash. That's your reward. So you got to pick up and go. And so, despite winning, you still lost. Or, despite losing your home, you won because you're still alive and you can live another day. It's all in how you look at it. Military prowess. The Ambrians are experienced in warfare, particularly in open field battles. Their disciplined armies are a force to be reckoned with. However, the force of Davokar present a different kind of challenge, where their large formations are less effective, making them less skilled than any other groups in the environment. Yeah, so they're used to doing your standard marching, across open plains, and cavalry on the end, and heavy cavalry, archery, the whole shebang. And they don't lose, boy. They when they take the field, they're rolling. They're rolling. Generals, they're well trained. They're rolling. You get that same group of folks in Davokar, it's a whole nother world. All that falls apart. The Church of Prios. Now, dig this. Religion plays a crucial role in Ambrian society. The Church of Prios is the dominant religious force, with Prios being revered as the sun god and lawgiver. They hold the stories of the Lightbringers and martyrs dear. The church is involved in both spiritual guidance and the daily matters of the kingdom. So we'll get into that as far as factions go. There is the religion, Church of Prios, is a faction. They hold. I like to say this because I get this from the Crucible. Their name carries weight in the village, and it's in every Ambrian's core because they do feel that religion and the power of the Lightgiver is what got them through that horrific war just not too long ago. And it might just be the Lightgiver that has shown them a new place to rebuild. Storytellers. Ambrians are storytellers, but their methods are more diverse than the barbarians. They have bards, poets, actors, dancers, and artists who entertain in a variety of venues. The Great War, Tales of Praia, and more recently stories about Davokar include fortune hunters and dangerous creatures are common themes. So, as you can tell, advanced civilization, they like a good story, and they're proud of themselves. So when you go to be entertained, be prepared to be entertained of stories of yesteryear or great war stories, or we're going to talk about the Lightbringer and how the Lightbringer brought us to salvation. And then they're starting to be creep up stories about campaigns into Davokar and the successes of those campaigns and the new creatures that are defeated or possibly um, brought in for processing. These new furs and valuable ivories that they're finding and the gains that they're making. Social stratification. And this is what I'm talking about as far as, what would brought me my attention to this game, just this type of maturity here. Social stratification. Ambrian society is highly stratified, with nobles, merchants, craftsmen, free laborers. Remember how I said free laborers because there is slavery in this game. Free laborers, thralls, and serfs, each having distinct social positions and cultural practices. It's awesome. It is awesome. Nobles often enjoy grand tapestries depicting battles or nature. Common folk rely on taverns and stories of their elders for entertainment. So that's your social stratification. We're talking Ambrians now, so that's all human. We're not talking, non-humans, because that also gets thrown into the stratification. Technologically advanced. Compared to the barbarian clans, the Ambrians are more advanced technologically. Just think about late medieval Europe, right? That's how I picture it too. That's where we're at with the Ambrians. They cultivate the land and raise livestock, allowing them to live in larger numbers and permanent settlements. They use tools and materials more efficiently than others, especially for construction and agriculture. Yeah. So remember how I mentioned before about how nature sometimes pushes back? Yeah. Well, we're gonna, we did a nice little deep dive in Davokar as much as I could. I couldn't reveal too much more. Um, but there's also outside of Davokar and what the land looks like. I mentioned it a little bit, and I haven't mentioned any of the rivers or the lakes or any of the other terrain that's around there. Well, where the Ambrians end up settling is actually perfect for agriculture. It is like absolutely perfect for agriculture. But to do that, you have to take down what nature has there. And we'll see if maybe ripping up thousands of acres of grasslands and plains to put in agriculture is the right thing to do. We'll see how nature treats that, or how nature feels about that. Let's take a look at some common Ambrian culture details. Let's look at their architecture, and you can see this in a lot of the artwork that comes with these games. Uh, Ambrians build towns and cities with stone structures, bringing their architectural styles from their homeland of Alberator. Their buildings, while functional, are also crafted to be aesthetically pleasing. And you're going to see that the barbarians and the dwarves and the elves are quite different. And I did say dwarves, I did mention them, didn't I? Social hierarchies. Their social, I'm sorry, their society is very structured with distinct classes and varying degrees of wealth and statuses. We mentioned that. This influences every aspect of Ambrian life, from their dress to their daily interactions. So we have to remember that, like when playing the game, and of course this is all adjustable. You can do whatever you want, but I've talked and talked about Davokar, and like that's the big magnet. Well, there are some phenomenal um, cities and frontier towns and barbarian villages and the underground, and there's just so much to this. Like, you don't have to go if you think this game is designed, oh, every time we play we got to go into a forest, so you can forget any type of water campaign or dungeon delving. Oh, no, 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 no. You could have an entire campaign and never go in Davokar. Yes, it is set up. There are magnificent. If you're a city crawler and you want to do that sort of stuff with intrigue and all that, oh yes, they have it. You don't have to be anywhere near Davokar to really enjoy this setting. Now let's talk about Ambrian motivation and what drives them. Exploration and exploitation. Ambrians are drawn to Davokar for its abundant resources, treasures, and lost knowledge. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. They see the forest as a resource to be used for their benefit and as a place to acquire wealth and power. So this is what you have to remember, right? They don't know Davokar. They don't know. And they recently showed up. They go in there and they're looking, like I'm telling you, they're going in there. We need lumber. Let's go in there and get lumber. Um, we may need some type of mineral, maybe some type of sand to help with our concrete, or maybe there's some, they find whatever they need to find. They're in there, they're trying to rebuild civilization. They're coming from an advanced civilization. They're going into that forest to see if there's anything they can use to help rebuild what they lost. And they go in there and they're assuming it's all forest. But somebody comes out and they got a story about how they found a house, or they found a small village in ruins, or they found a temple. And now they're like, well, what the heck is a temple doing in there? Like, we thought we were the first humans, well, other than the barbarians, but the barbarians don't build temples like that. See what I'm saying? So the longer they're there, they're starting to get little bits of information, or maybe they go into um, some part of the forest, maybe a grove or something, and they find some type of written language, some hieroglyphs or something that clues them into there's more to this than just a regular wild frontier forest, that somebody or something else was here. And so again, that drives them a little bit. Um, and as far as the resources they have, they're using the terminology exploration and exploitation. Again, that's not how the Ambrians look at it. The Ambrians aren't evil. That's you can scratch that from the thought of, because they're using that word exploitation. And at least I know in North America, when you hear exploitation, that's a negative connotation. The result of what they're doing is negative, but it's not a negative approach. They're not trying to run in and just take whatever they want from the forest. Again, like when I mentioned before, talking about Davokar in using the buckets of water out of the ocean, that's their approach. They're like, look, there's so much of it. Like, We're just going to take some, and no one's going to know any different, or it's not going to have any impact. Expansion and control. They seek to expand their kingdom and establish dominance over the region, sometimes leading to conflict with the native barbarian clans and the elves of the Iron Pact. Don't worry about the Iron Pact. We'll get to that later when we get to factions. Yes, so um, we'll get into the history of the barbarians and the Ambrians, but I can tell you this: the Ambrians rolled in and and they were like, "Listen, we don't have a home no more, and this is our home." And the barbarians were like, "Yeah, the hell it is." And the Ambrians were like, "All right, let's go." And yeah, barbarians are gone. So we can get into more detail about that, but I can tell you this: that the Ambrians definitely put themselves on a higher shelf than the barbarians, and they don't trust the barbarians. They don't look at the barbarians as possibly a source of knowledge or a resource other than physical labor. So anytime a barbarian, they catch a barbarian raiding party or whatever, if they don't kill them or imprison them, they will enslave them, and they'll put those barbarians to work. Look at all those muscles. Yeah, now go over there and crack those stone and build some scaffolding, and let's, build a street and with a gutter in it. And if you die, you die because you had a raiding party and you felt you're just going to take from the Ambrians. So you see how that works. So there's really no love for the barbarians, and they did go toe to toe with them. There was a clash, and the barbarians got figured out pretty quick. Moving on, religious zeal. We sort of mentioned that before with the Church of Prios. Many Ambrians are motivated by the Church of Prios to restore ancient temples, uncover lost holy sites, or eliminate heretical influences. They believe that they are acting on the will of Prios. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack right there in that little quick statement. So the church is very powerful, and there's other groups that are also very powerful, and the church, they have privileged information. I guess sort of like the Vatican does, or possibly maybe like the other faiths of the world, where they probably have some ancient tomes, or there's political intrigue and control in right now current world politics. I don't have to tell you. Well, it's no different with for the Ambrians. Their church is, they're possibly using fake news or false propaganda to say, hey, Prios bailed us out back there and gave us this new land, and so in return you need to build some temples here or whatever. Or if they hear about temples in Davakar, possibly, oh, we need to rebuild those temples because I'm sure the elves are like, oh, hell no. We're not given any reasons for these humans to get back in this forest, so if that's an old temple, we're going to knock it down or hide it, you know, as best we can. So, so you have that going on. In the meantime, there's agents of the church, and in fact, that's what I was when my player character is an agent of the church. So I go out there and look for heretics. It's pretty cool stuff. Because they're everywhere. Because every damn barbarian's a heretic. Because they don't want to hear nothing about Prius. I can tell you that. So in summary, Ambrians are a complex and multifaceted people shaped by their history and driven by their ambitions. They represent the force of civilization in the world of ruins of Symbaroum, and their interactions with the wilderness of Davakar drive much of the conflict and adventure of the game. They are not monolithic within Ambria. Uh, there are countless individuals with diverse motivations and beliefs, each reacting to the forest and the world in their own way. Their ambition, their drive for progress, and an ability to escape the past are the source of many of the conflicts in Symbaroum. And that's a general Ambrian. Um, Lost with a little bit of hope, um, and a lot of them still, some of the older Ambrians still remember uh, what drove them to this place, and it's just a hole in their heart. I mean, I could imagine a soldier during that time, and the stuff they had to have seen, and then they win the day, only to realize we got to move. This isn't working. Nothing's growing, and the water's poisoned. Ash. We got to move out. And so the whole kingdom gets together, and they're like, we gotta go. And so it's an arduous trek, and they show up in a place that looks like paradise. And how could as a soldier, how can you enjoy paradise when you still have all that horrific stuff in your brain, and you weren't able to really save the homeland? I mean, you saved the people, but you couldn't save the land. And so I guess you look at your children or possibly your grandchildren and think, well, I did all this for them, but a piece of me is still back at home, where I couldn't save it. So that's the Ambrians. Hey guys, I appreciate you. Thanks for sticking around, and can't wait to do the next episode. And I think on the next one we're going to talk about some barbarians and possibly what they think about the Ambrians.